He loved me more than you ever knew, Amanda sneered, standing on our family ranch's front porch like she owned it. That's why he left everything to me. My sister-in-law's words hit harder than the Texas summer heat as I stood in the driveway, still holding the box of my father's photographs I'd come to collect. My name is Emma Carter, and at 32, I was being locked out of my childhood home by the woman who'd married my brother just 18 months ago. The same woman who'd somehow convinced my father to change his will 3 days before he died of a sudden heart attack. The locks have been changed, Amanda continued, twirling a new key ring around her finger. And I already called the sheriff about trespassing. Your father made his choice, Emma. He chose me. I gripped the photo box tighter, my knuckles turning white. Inside were pictures spanning 30 years of ranch life, cattle drives, horse training, family dinners, memories Amanda couldn't possibly understand after her brief time here. Yet somehow, she'd managed to sink her claws into everything my family had built. My father was sick, Amanda. He wasn't thinking clearly in those final days. I kept my voice steady, though inside I was screaming. This ranch has been in my family for 4 generations. She laughed, the sound brittle and sharp. And now it's in mine. Your brother signed off on everything too. Face it, Emma, you're not wanted here anymore. My brother David. The thought of him brought a fresh wave of pain. He'd always been easily influenced, but I never thought he'd turn against me like this. After Amanda came into his life, he changed, becoming distant, defensive. Now he wouldn't even take my calls. Where is David? I asked, scanning the property for his truck. Business trip in Houston. Amanda replied with a dismissive wave. Not that it matters. He agrees with me, you need to move on. Find your own life instead of clinging to Daddy's legacy. Clinging to Daddy's legacy. The words stung because they couldn't be further from the truth. I'd spent the last 10 years building my own veterinary practice in Austin, coming home on weekends to help with the ranch. Every fence post, every cattle head, every acre of this land was as much a part of me as my own heartbeat. I set the photo box down and pulled out my phone, scrolling to a picture I'd discovered just yesterday while cleaning out Dad's study. It showed Amanda sitting at Dad's desk, leaning over some papers, taken just days before he died. What she didn't know was that I found something else too. Something that would change everything. You know, Amanda, I said, keeping my voice calm, it's interesting how quickly you moved in after Dad's death. Almost like you were expecting it. Her smile faltered for just a second. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, I replied, picking up the box again. Just thinking out loud. By the way, how's your brother Marcus doing these days? The color drained from her face. What does my brother have to do with anything? I smiled, remembering the conversation I'd had with Dad's doctor yesterday. Like I said, just thinking out loud. I'll be going now, but don't get too comfortable. Things have a way of coming to light. Is that a threat? Amanda called after me as I walked back to my truck, because I have the law on my side. I placed the box carefully in the passenger seat and turned back to her. No threat, Amanda. Just a promise. Dad always said the truth was like cream. It rises to the top eventually. As I drove away, I could see her still standing on the porch, her confident pose slightly shaken. She had no idea what I'd discovered in Dad's study, or about the DNA test I'd secretly ordered. No idea about the security camera footage I'd retrieved from Dad's computer, showing her and her brother in Dad's study late at night, or the medical records that would prove everything. I pulled over at the end of the long driveway, my hands shaking as I gripped the steering wheel. The ranch stretched out behind me, the afternoon sun catching on the metal roof of the barn where I'd learned to ride my first horse, where Dad had taught me everything about animal care, inadvertently setting me on the path to becoming a veterinarian. My phone buzzed, a text from Dr. Martinez, Dad's physician. Lab results tomorrow. Come by first thing. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Amanda thought she had won, thought she'd successfully stolen everything my family had built, but she didn't know what was coming. The DNA test would only be the beginning. I pulled out the other photo I found in Dad's study, the one I hadn't told anyone about yet. It showed Amanda's brother Marcus at a pharmacy counter 3 weeks before Dad's death. The timestamp matched exactly with Dad's prescription records that showed some very suspicious changes in his medication. Just wait, Dad, I whispered, touching the silver horseshoe pendant he'd given me on my 16th birthday. I'll make this right. As I drove toward town, my mind was already forming a plan. Amanda might have the ranch for now, might think she's won. But I had something more powerful on my side: the truth. And tomorrow, when the DNA test results arrived, everyone would finally see what kind of person she really was. The setting sun cast long shadows across the familiar roads as I headed to my small apartment in town. Tomorrow couldn't come soon enough, but for now, I had work to do. Dad had taught me that patience was the key to handling spooked horses. Turns out it's also the key to handling spooked humans who think they've gotten away with the perfect crime. I pulled into my parking spot, the photo box secured beside me, and smiled. Amanda had no idea what was coming, but she'd learned soon enough that some things are thicker than water, like justice, truth, and the bond between a father and his real daughter. The game was just beginning, and I intended to play it all the way through. After all, I was Tom Carter's daughter, and if there's one thing he taught me, it was how to fight for what's right. Tomorrow the real battle would begin. The morning sun had barely touched the hospital windows when I walked into Dr. Martinez's office. My heart pounded as I clutched the manila envelope he handed me, containing the DNA test results that could change everything. "You were right to be suspicious, Emma," Dr. Martinez said, his usually cheerful face serious. "The genetic analysis shows no familial relationship between your father and Amanda's baby. She's been lying about the pregnancy being your father's." I sank into the chair, letting out a breath I felt like I'd been holding for weeks. Amanda had announced her supposed pregnancy with my father's child just 2 days before his death, using it as leverage to manipulate him into changing his will. The timing had always seemed too convenient. "There's more," Dr. Martinez continued, pulling out another file. "I've reviewed your father's toxicology reports from his final days. The levels of his heart medication were far higher than what I prescribed. Someone was tampering with his dosage." My hands trembled as I opened the second file. I found security footage of Amanda's brother Marcus at the pharmacy where Dad's prescriptions were filled, and photos of both of them in Dad's study late at night. Dr. Martinez's eyes widened. "Emma, this is serious. We need to take this to the authorities." "I already have." I pulled out my phone, showing him the email from Detective Sarah Morgan. "I met with her yesterday. She's building a case, but we needed these test results to proceed." Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from David. "Emma, we need to talk. Meet me at the diner in 20 minutes. I showed Dr. Martinez the message. "My brother's finally ready to listen. Mind if I take these files with me?" He nodded, his expression sympathetic. "Be careful, Emma. People can be dangerous when cornered." The Bell's Diner was quiet this early, just a few regulars nursing their coffee. David sat in our usual booth, looking tired and uncertain. The sight of him made my heart ache. We'd been so close before Amanda came into our lives. "Hey," he said softly as I slid into the seat across from him. "I've been doing some thinking." "That must be new," I couldn't help saying. "Amanda usually does your thinking for you these days." He winced but didn't argue. "I found something in Dad's study last night after Amanda went to bed. A letter he wrote to me, hidden in his old boots." He pulled out a worn envelope. "He knew something was wrong, Emma. He was trying to tell us." I placed the DNA results on the table. "There's a lot wrong, David. Amanda's been lying to all of us. That baby she claims is Dad's, it's not his." The color drained from his face as he read the results. "But she said she convinced Dad." "She convinced him of a lot of things," I said gently, "with help from her brother Marcus. They were planning this for months." David's hands shook as he set down the paper. "The night Dad died, I saw Marcus leaving the house. Amanda said he was just dropping off some supplements for Dad's heart. They were tampering with his medication, David. Dr. Martinez confirmed it this morning. The toxicology reports showed dangerous levels of his heart medication in his system." My brother's face crumpled. "Oh God, Emma. What have I let happen?" "It's not too late." I reached across the table, taking his hand. "Detective Morgan is building a case, but we need your help. Amanda trusts you. She might have left evidence in the house." David squeezed my hand, and for a moment I saw my big brother again, the one who used to protect me from schoolyard bullies and teach me to rope cattle. "Tell me what you need." Just then, the diner's door chimed. Amanda walked in, her face darkening when she saw us together. "Well, isn't this cozy? Having a little family reunion without me?" "Amanda, David's voice was different now, harder. "We need to talk." "About what?" She slid into the booth next to him, her hand possessively on his arm. "About how your sister's trying to cause trouble again." I met her gaze steadily. "About how you're not actually carrying my father's child." The flash of panic in her eyes was brief but unmistakable. "That's ridiculous. I have the tests to prove it." "Funny thing about tests," I said, sliding the DNA results across the table. "They tend to reveal the truth." Amanda's face went pale as she read the document. "These are fake. You're trying to trick us." "Like you tricked Dad." David's voice was quiet but firm. "Like how you and Marcus tricked all of us." Amanda's composure cracked. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "You don't know what you're talking about. Either of you." "I think we do," I said, standing to face her. "And so does Detective Morgan. She's very interested in those late-night visits you and Marcus made to Dad's study, and the pharmacy records showing how Marcus tampered with Dad's prescriptions." Amanda's hand flew to her throat. "You can't prove anything." "Actually, we can." David stood up too, moving to stand beside me. "It's over, Amanda. Get out of our house." She looked between us, her confident facade crumbling. "You'll regret this," she hissed, then turned and fled the diner. David and I watched her go, then he turned to me. "I'm so sorry, Emma. I should have listened to you sooner." "You're listening now," I said, hugging him tight. "That's what matters." As we drove back to the ranch together, I could see change in David's posture, like a weight had been lifted. We both knew the fight wasn't over. Amanda wouldn't give up easily, but for the first time since Dad's death, we were facing it together. "Dad would be proud of you," David said as we pulled up to the ranch house. "You never gave up on the truth." I touched my horseshoe pendant, smiling. "He taught us both that, remember? The truth always comes out in the wash." We walked up to the house together, ready to reclaim what was ours. Amanda's car was gone, but we knew this was just the beginning. There would be legal battles ahead, more evidence to gather, a long road to justice. But standing there with my brother, looking out over the land our family had worked for generations, I felt stronger than ever. The ranch would be ours again, and this time, we'd protect it together. The next phase of the battle was about to begin, and this time, we were ready. The courtroom was silent as Detective Morgan presented the evidence. Security footage, pharmacy records, and finally, the DNA test results flashed across the screen. Amanda sat at the defendant's table, her confident smirk replaced by a pale, tight-lipped expression. Her brother Marcus slouched beside her, refusing to meet anyone's eye. 3 months had passed since that morning at the diner, and everything had finally come to light. The investigation had uncovered more than we'd initially suspected. Not only had Amanda and Marcus tampered with Dad's medication, but they also forged documents, manipulated his bank accounts, and orchestrated an elaborate scheme to steal our family's legacy. "Your Honor," Detective Morgan concluded, "the evidence clearly shows that Amanda Carter and Marcus Wheeler conspired to manipulate Thomas Carter during his final days, ultimately contributing to his death through medication tampering." I sat between David and our lawyer, gripping my horseshoe pendant. The past months had been challenging, but watching Amanda's carefully constructed lies unravel made it worth every difficult moment. The prosecution calls Emma Carter to the stand. Walking to the witness box, I caught Amanda's venomous glare. But this time, her attempts at intimidation had no effect. I was stronger now, supported by truth and family. "Ms. Carter," our lawyer began, "please tell the court about the changes you noticed in your father's behavior during his final weeks." I took a deep breath, my voice steady. Dad became confused, forgetful. He'd forget conversations we just had, sign documents without reading them. It wasn't like him at all. Now we know why. His medication was being altered, making him vulnerable to manipulation. The evidence was irrefutable. The security cameras Dad had installed years ago had captured Amanda and Marcus switching his heart medication, their late-night meetings in his study, and their frantic attempts to cover their tracks after his death. "And the pregnancy claim?" our lawyer prompted. "Amanda used it to pressure my father into changing his will. She claimed she was carrying his child, but the DNA results proved that was a lie. She manipulated a dying man's desire for another chance at family." The judge's gavel crashed down as Amanda's lawyer attempted to object. The evidence spoke for itself. By day's end, the verdict was clear. Amanda and Marcus were both found guilty of fraud, conspiracy, and criminal negligence leading to death. I hope you're happy, Amanda spat as the officers led her away. You've ruined everything. No, Amanda, I replied calmly. You did that yourself. Outside the courthouse, David wrapped me in a tight hug. We did it, sis. Dad would be proud. He'd be prouder of you, I said, pulling back to look at my brother. It took courage to admit you were wrong and stand up to Amanda. David smiled sadly. I just wish I'd seen through her sooner. Maybe Dad would still be. Hey, I squeezed his hand. Dad knew we'd figure it out. That's why he left all those clues. He trusted us to uncover the truth. A week later, we stood on the ranch's front porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. The property was officially ours again. All legal documents restored to their original state. Remember when Dad used to say this was the best view in Texas? David leaned against the railing, his face peaceful for the first time in months. Second best, I corrected, smiling. The best view was from the south pasture, watching the horses run. As if on cue, a group of horses galloped across the distant field, their movements graceful and free. Dad's prize stallion, Thunder, led the group, his dark coat gleaming in the fading light. I've been thinking, David said, turning to face me. You should move back to the ranch. Your veterinary practice could really thrive here. The neighboring ranches have been asking about you. I touched my pendant, considering his words. What about you? I'll stay too. We can run this place together, the way Dad always wanted. Besides, he grinned, someone needs to keep you out of trouble. Pretty sure it's the other way around, I laughed, punching his arm playfully. That evening, as I unpacked boxes in my old bedroom, I found Dad's journal. Inside on the last page was a message he'd written just days before his death. My dear Emma and David, trust your instincts, trust each other. The truth has a way of surfacing like a strong horse swimming against the current. You two are stronger together than any force trying to tear you apart. Take care of each other and take care of our legacy. Love, Dad. I wiped away tears as David appeared in the doorway. Found something. Wordlessly, I handed him the journal. As he read, a soft smile spread across his face. He knew, David said quietly, he knew we'd find our way back to each other. Standing there in our childhood home, surrounded by memories and the promise of new beginnings, I felt Dad's presence stronger than ever. Amanda had tried to steal our legacy, but she never understood what that legacy truly meant. It wasn't just about the land or the ranch. It was about family, truth, and the bonds that couldn't be broken. The ranch was alive again, filled with the sounds of horses, the scent of hay, and the warmth of home. Dad's spirit lived on in every corner, every fence post, every sunrise over the Texas hills. And now, with David by my side, we would honor his memory by building something even stronger than before. Some people might call it justice, but I like to think of it as coming home, to the truth, to family, and to the legacy Dad always knew we'd protect.